That Lass of Lowrie's by Francis Hodgson Burnett. Chapter 16.
"Craddock is in serious trouble,"
said Mr. Barham to his wife and daughter. "Old Sammy in trouble?" said Annice. "How is that, Papa?" The Reverend Harold looked at once concerned and annoyed. In truth, he had cause for irritation. The laurels he had intended to win through Sammy Craddock were farther from being won today than they had ever been. He was beginning to feel a dim, scarcely developed but sore conviction that they were not laurels for his particular wearing.
"It is that bank failure at Aylesbury," he answered. "You have heard of it, I dare say. There has been a complete crash, and Craddock's small savings being deposited there, he has lost everything he depended upon to support him in his old age. It is a hard business."
"Have you been to see Craddock?" Mrs. Barham asked.
"Oh, yes,"
was the answer, and the irritation became even more apparent than before.
"I went as soon as I heard it, last night indeed, but it was of no use. I had better have stayed away. I don't seem to make much progress with Craddock, somehow or other. He is such a cross-grained, contradictory old fellow. I hardly know what to make of him. And to add to his difficulties, his wife is so prostrated by the blow that she is confined to her bed. I talk to them and advise them to have patience and look for comfort from the fountain head. But Craddock almost seemed to take it ill, and was even more disrespectful in manner than usual.
It was a heavy blow that had fallen upon old Sammy. For a man to lose his all at his time of life would have been hard enough anywhere, but it was trebly hard to meet with such a trial in Wigan. To have money, however small the sum, laid by in the bank was in Wigan to be almost illustrious. The man who had an income of 10 shillings a week was a member of society whose opinions bore weight. The man with 20 was regarded with private awe and public respect. He was deferred to as a man of property. His presence was considered to confer something like honour upon an assembly, or at least to make it respectable. The government was supposed to be not entirely oblivious to his existence, and his remarks upon the affairs of the nation and the conduct of the Prime Minister and Cabinet were listened to as being above comment. Sammy Craddock had been the man with 20 shillings income. He had worked hard in his youth, and had been too shrewd and far-sighted to spend hard. His wife had helped him, and a lucky windfall upon the decease of a parsimonious relative had done the rest. The weekly deposit in the old stocking, hidden under the mattress, had become a bank deposit, and by the time he was incapacitated from active labour, a decent little income was ready. When the Aylesbury Bank stopped payment, not only his daily bread, but his dearly valued importance was swept away from him at one fell blow. Instead of being a man of property, with a voice in the affairs of the nation, he was a beggar. He saw himself set aside among the frequenters of the Crown, his political opinions ignored, his sarcasms shorn of their point. Knowing his poverty and misfortune, the men who had almost stood in awe of him would begin to suspect him of needing their assistance, and avoid him accordingly. "It's human nature," he said. "No one likes a dog whipped mange, whether the dog's to blame or no. The dog may ha' getting it honest. 'Tisna the dog, it's the mange as folks want to get rid on." "Providence," said he to the rector, when that portly consoler called on him. "It's Providence, is it? Well, all I say is, that if that's the ways of Providence, the less notice Providence takes on us, the better." His remarks upon his first appearance at the Crown among his associates, after the occurrence of the misfortune, were even more caustic and irreverent. He was an irreverent old sinner at his best, and now Sammy was at his worst. Seeing his crab-wrinkled old face drawn into an expression signifying defiance at once of his ill luck and worldly comment, his acquaintances shoot their heads discreetly. Their reverence for him as a man of property could not easily die out. The next thing to being a man of property was to have possessed worldly goods, which had been made away with. It scarcely mattered how. Indeed, even to have made away with a mortar money oneself was to be regarded as a man of parts and no inconsiderable spirit. "You're in a mort of trouble, Sammy, I make no doubt," remarked one oracle, puffing at his long clay. "Trouble enough," returned Sammy shortly, "if you call it trouble to be on road to poorhouse." "Aye, indeed," with a sigh, "I should think so. But trouble's the lot of mon. Riches is deceitful and beauty is vain." "Not as though there was ever much o' beauty, Sammy. I canna mean that." "Don't hurt thyself explaining," dryly. "I never set up for one. I left that to thee. Thy mug was always thy fortune." "Thou'rt fretted now, Sammy," he said. "Thou'rt fretted, and it makes thee sharp-tongued." "Like as not," answered Sammy. "Fretting works different with some folk to what it does with others. I never seed thee fretted, mysen. Does it have the same effect on thee, if it happens to? I should think it wouldn't harm thee, or other folk either. A bit of sharpness isna so hard to stand, where it's a variety." "See thee, Sammy," called out a boisterous young fellow from the other side of the room. "What did Parson have to say to thee? Thwaite were telling me as he carried prayer boot to thee as soon as he heard the news. Did he read thee Christian service of the burial to give thee a bit of comfort?" "Happen he give 'em both and throwed in litany," shouted another. "How were it, Sammy? Let's see her." Sammy's face began to relax. A few of the knots and wrinkles showed signs of dispersing. A slow twisting of the features took place, which might have been looked upon as promising a smile in due course of time. These young fellows wanted to hear him talk and tack off the parson. His occupation was not entirely gone after all. It was specially soothing to his vanity to feel that his greatest importance lay in his own powers, and not altogether in more corruptible and uncertain attractions. He condescended to help himself to a pipe full of a friend's tobacco. "Let's see her," cried a third member of the company. "Give us the tale. Out and out, old lad. Thou'rt the one to do it gradely." Sammy applied a lucifer to the fragrant weed and sucked at his pipe deliberately. "It's no one so much of a tale," he said with an air of disparagement and indifference. "You chaps make so much out and out. The parson's well enow in his way, but," in naive self-satisfaction, "I mun say he's a foo, and the biggest foo for his size I ever had the pleasure of seeing." They knew the right chord was touched. A laugh went round, but there was no other interruption, and Sammy proceeded. "What'n you lads think as first thing he says to me were?" with vigorous enjoyment of his pipe and his own position. "Why, he comes in and sits hisself down and he swells hisself out like a frog in trouble, and says he, 'My friend, I hope you cling to the Rock of Ages.' And says I, 'No, I dunna nowt at sort, and be dommed to you.' It weren't hospitable," with a momentary touch of deprecation. "And I dunna say as it were hospitable, but I weren't in the mood to be hospitable just at time. It took him back too, but he's getting round after a bit, and he's tackled me again, and we had it back'ard and for'ard betwixt us for a good half-hour. He said it were Providence, and I said happen it were, and happen it weren't. I weren't so friendly and familiar with Lord as he seemed to be, so I couldn't tell folk all he meant and all he didna mean. See thee here, lads," making a fist of his knotty old hand and laying it upon the table. "That's there's what stirs me up it parson kind, that I was setting down to explain what the Lord Almighty's up to, as if he were a confidential friend of theirs, as they were bound to back up in some road, and they mun drag him in endways or sideways in their talk, whether or not, and they wunna be content to leave him to work for hisseln. Seems to me, if I were a disciple, as they call it, I should be ashamed in a manner to be always apologising for him as I believed in. I dunna say for 'em to say now, but I do say for 'em not to be so domn free and easy about it. Now there's thou parson, he's getting a lot of Bible words as he uses, and he brings 'em in by scruff at neck, if he canna do no better, for bring him in he mun, and it looks like he's all in a fever till he's said 'em and getting 'em off his mind, and it seems to me like, when he has said 'em, he sort of straightens hisself out, and feels comfortable, like a man as has done a masterly job as gonna be mended. As for me, you know, I'm noan the Methodist sort mysen, but I am no fool, and I know a fine light principle when I see it, and this matter of religion is a fine enough thing if you could get it straightforward and plain without so much trimmings. But, feeling perhaps this was a large admission, as I say, I am noan a Methody breed mysen. And so thou telt parson, I'll warrant, suggested one of his listeners, who was desirous of hearing further particulars of the combat between these two opposing powers. Well, well, admitted Craddock, with the self-satisfaction of a man who feels that he has acquitted himself creditably. Happen I did, even for having me thanked th' Almighty for all that had happened me, but I told him as I did not quite see th' road clear. I dunna thank a chap as gives me a crack at side at th' head. I may stand it, for so be as I canna give him a crack back, but I dunna know as I should thank him for favour. And not being one of regenerates, as he calls 'em, I dunna feel like singing hymns just yet. Happen it's 'cause I'm unregenerate, and happen it's human nature. I shouldna wonder if it's pull devil, pull baker, wi' best o' folk as isna prize fools like thou parson. Says I to him, not being regenerate, I dunna believe in so much grace afore meat. I say let's have meat first and grace afterwards. These remarks upon matters theological were applauded enthusiastically by the discriminating audience. Old Sammy had finished his say, however, and having a sensible theory that having temporarily exhausted his views upon a subject, it was well to let the field lie in fallow, he did not begin again. He turned his attention from his audience to his pipe and the intimate friends who sat near him. "What art they going to do, old lad?" asked one. "Try for a seat in Parliament," was the answer. "A pack of bits of duds in a wheelbarrow, and set thou lass on 'em and tap the nighest road to Union. That is the workhouse. I mun do summat for a being." "That's true enough. We're main sorry for thee, Sammy. Tak' another mug of sixpenny to keep up thy spirits. There's nowt as cheers a mon like a sup at reet sort." "I shanna get much on it if I go to poorhouse," commented Sammy, filling his beer mug. "Skilly and water gruel dunna fly to a mon's head, I'll warrant. Aye, I wonder how thou lass'll do without her drop of tea, and how she'll stand being buried by parish. That'll be worse than aught else. She's set her mind on riding to graveyard in the shiniest hearse as could be getten, and with all the black feathers in the undertaker's winder waving on the roof. Th' old wench were quite set in her notion of being a bit fashionable at the last. I believe hoo quite enjoyed the ride in a quiet way. Dear, I'm feared she'll never be able to stand the thought of being put under in a common style. I wish we'd kept a bit of brass in thou's stocking." "It's a bad enough lookout," granted another, "but I wouldna give up at once, Sammy. Happen tha could find a bit of leet work as 'ud keep thee out at Union. If you could get a word or two spoke to Master Avalon now. He's just lost his lodge-keeper, and he isna close about paying a mon for what he does. How would tha like to keep lodge?" "It'd be all I'd ask," said Sammy. "I'd be main well satisfied, you may be sure. But you know there's so many looking out for a job of that kind, and I havena mony friends among quality, and never were smooth-tongued enough." True enough that. Among the country gentry, Sammy Craddock was regarded as a disrespectful, if not a dangerous, old fellow. a man who made satirical observations upon the ways and manners of his social superiors, could not be much better than a heretic, and since his associates made a demigod of him, he was all the more dangerous. He revered neither lords nor commons, and was not to be awed by the most imposing institutions. He did not take his hat off when the gentry rode by, and it was well known that he had jeered at several of the most important individuals in county office. Consequently, discreet persons, who did not believe in the morals of the masses, shook their head at him, figuratively speaking, and predicted that the end of his career would be unfortunate. So it was not very likely that he would receive much patronage in the hour of his downfall. Most people would privately be of the opinion that his misfortune was a providential dispensation, and served him right. Sammy Craddock was in an uncomfortable frame of mind when he left his companions and turned homeward. It was a bad lookout for himself, and a bad one for th' lass. His sympathy for the good woman was not of a sentimental order, but it was sympathy nevertheless. He had been a good husband, if not an effusive one. Th' lass had known her only rival in the crown, and his boon companions, and upon the whole neither had interfered with her comfort, though it was her habit and her pleasure to be loud in her condemnation and disparagement of both. She would not have felt her connubial life complete without a grievance, so Sammy's tendency to talk politics over his pipe and beer was her standard resource. When he went out he had left her lying down in the depths of despair, but when he entered the house he found her up and dressed, seated by the window in the sun, a bunch of bright flowers before her. "Well now," he exclaimed, "thou never says. What's taken thee? I thought thou were bedrid for the rest of thy days." "How thy tongue," she answered, with a proper touch of wifely irritation at his levity. "I've had a bit of company, and it's chirped me up summat. That little lass at thou parson has been setting with me." "That's it, is it? Aye, and I tell you, Sammy, she's a nice little wench. Why, she's getting the ways of a woman, 'stead of a lass. She's that there quiet and steady, and she's getting her face as pratty as her ways too." Sammy scratched his head and reflected. "I mak no doubt on it," he answered. "I mak no doubt on it. It were her that knows has settled the fight betwixt the lads and the dog. I'm wondering why she hasna been here afore. Well now," taking up a stitch in her knitting, "that's the queer part o' it. What'n you think the little thing said when I asked her why? She says, it didna seem like I was needed exactly, and I didn't know as you'd care to have a stranger come without being asked. Just as if she'd been nowt but a neighbour's lass and wouldn't tak liberty." "That's noant thou parson's ways," said Sammy. "Thou parson," testily. "I had no patience with him. The little lass is as different from him as chalk is from cheese."